of that part of this lawsuit included the FDA's authority to regulate or decide what is and is not accessible and available.
And Jose, that's sort of why I think the court thought that this was a bridge too far. The standing gave them the grounds to do it, but also the potential fallout would have been massive. If they had upheld the lower court that wanted to try to take this pill off the market, it would have put every single FDA-approved drug potentially on the chopping block from people who simply did not like it. As the court outlined here, these are not doctors who want to prescribe mifepristone. These are doctors who never want to prescribe mifepristone. And these are not patients who say they've been harmed in any way. These are advocates who simply think that the drug is not safe, even though the Biden administration and the FDA has shown time and again that it is safe, Jose. And, you know, it's interesting because this is one of two major abortion rulings that are up for this high court, a court that just 2 years ago said it wanted to get out of the business of abortion, but we see they are still knee-deep in it, and really their hands were forced in this case because, Jose, if they had done nothing, then the lower court ruling, which tried to jeopardize the pill, would have been in play. And so they had to take this up. They essentially had to take this case up to correct it, Jose.
Is there something to read from the unanimous nature of this, Laura?
I think because they did it on standing grounds, Jose, that sort of gave them the opportunity to all come together and not have to address the merits of abortion or the merits of something that might be a little bit trickier and more polarizing for them, because standing is supposed to be such a bedrock issue. Many had wondered how the case managed to get this far. Remember, this all started more than a year ago. It was Good Friday last year when a single judge in Texas tried to take the pill off the market nationwide. That's what set this whole thing off, and it's been winding its way through the courts for more than a year now. And it's sort of stunning that it managed to get as far as it did when the grounds on standing were so clear cut, at least in the Supreme Court's eyes.
Yeah, normally, Yamiche, when a ruling comes down, it pretty much stops anything related to that ruling from continuing, but this is possibly not the case in this ruling?
That's right. This is a 6-3 conservative majority case. A lot of Republicans are looking at this Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade just 2 years ago. The anniversary is coming up just around the corner. And there are a number of people who are looking at this and saying, well, because they didn't decide this on the merits, that possibly this opens the door for other people, patients who say they've been harmed by mifepristone, doctors who say that they've been denied the right to not prescribe mifepristone or not treat patients who are having complications with mifepristone, that they could possibly bring a separate case. So they're in some ways leaving the door open, punting it possibly here. Democrats are underscoring that point over and over again to me as I'm texting them in front of the Supreme Court. They're saying this is not meaning that the medication is safe, but the Supreme Court here is just saying on standing. And I think it's important to continue to underscore this is unanimous. That does not mean that this court that is very, very much divided on the issue of abortion. And when we think of the opinion that came down just 2 years ago, the sort of real tension between the justices that we could read there, they're not saying that this is on merit, that the FDA can continue to have this kind of approval process that they've had on this drug in particular. They're just saying that these doctors were the wrong ones. So I think there are a number of people who are feeling relief because there are women who want to continue to have access to mifepristone, but there are a number of abortion advocates who are telling me they are still very worried that in the future a separate case, a different kind of case, could come forward to challenge the access to mifepristone, which of course something like 63%, the majority of women in this country, use for abortion access. So this is really, I think, a big way that women access abortion treatment, which is why you're seeing abortion advocates say, pump the brakes here. It does not mean that while they think they got good news today, that it means that it's good news long term, Jose.
Yeah, and Yamiche, in those texts that you're having back and forth with all of the different sources that you have, what's been the reaction that you've been reading?
The reaction has really been that they are, especially from the Democrats that I'm talking to, I'm texting with senior advisors as well as people in the vice president's office, because Vice President Kamala Harris has become what is really the most prominent voice in the Biden administration on the issue of abortion. And they're all really telling me that while they are happy to see the Supreme Court say that these doctors who are not being forced to prescribe mifepristone, these people who are an anti-abortion group, they're not patients who have been harmed by it, they're feeling good about the fact that the Supreme Court is saying, okay, we're not going to let these people take mifepristone off of the market. They are saying, though, to me,
just lost Yamiche, and I want to very quickly, if I could, Laura, ask you, what are you looking out for? Because this is not the only abortion case currently before the court.
Jose, there is a significant case still left to come, and it has to do with a federal law that basically says if someone comes into the emergency room in need of life-saving treatment, you have to give it to them, even if it's an abortion. And so the question is, what happens in cases and in states that have a complete abortion ban, like Idaho? How do you reconcile that tension? And that's what the court's going to be looking at as we round out the rest of this term that's going to end in the next 2 weeks, Jose.
Laura Zierra, thank you very much. Yamiche Alcindor, thank you very much. Joining us now is Alexis McGill-Johnson, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood. Alexis, always great seeing you. I thank you for being with us. What's your reaction, first off, to this decision?
Well, I mean, we are obviously quite relieved that the Supreme Court unanimously decided that the plaintiffs in this case had no standing, and we also are wondering how it got here in the first place, as your reporters led in. This is a case that should have never been there before. We're also, happy that the court affirmed the FDA's role, right, in regulating medication, not anti-abortion dentists, even, who have no standing. And I think that's also really important. But, the reality is here, right, that this is not going to stop the attacks on medication abortion. This is not going to stop the attacks on reproductive freedom. There is a roadmap that is being laid out even within this opinion, and we're still digging in as well. But the preliminary look at Thomas's concurrence outlines who might have standing, right? So we know that this is a case that will continue to yield efforts for the anti-abortion minority when we see it potentially go back to the district court and continue. And so obviously we are still deeply concerned, but also relieved for the patients right now who can have access to the abortion care that they want in the way that they want it.
And, June 24th is going to mark the second anniversary of the Supreme Court's overturning Roe v. Wade. What are your thoughts as we approach that date?
Jose, I mean, we're living in a reality now where 1 out of 3 women and more trans and non-binary folks no longer have access to abortion care in that state. That's 2 out of 3 Black women who no longer have access to that care. And the devastation that we have already seen, right, knowing that abortion bans have made pregnancy more dangerous, that they have put at risk pregnancy outcomes for criminalization, and the impact to patients as well as providers in the communities, I think, is also something that we need to really take a look at and reflect on 2 years, in the 2 years that has passed. And the idea that within those 2 years, we are back at the Supreme Court, not once, but twice this year, with this Miffy case, as well as the EMTALA case, right? The fact that the Supreme Court is also considering whether or not Idaho has the right to let patients die because they refuse to provide abortion care in the state for patients who are desperately in need. And so I think, the reflection is really telling me that, the value of our bodies, our decisions, our equality, our lives is still being contested at the highest level in this nation, and under a constitution that is supposed to guarantee us, equality and liberty.
And so, and talking a little bit about that, because I'm glad you mentioned that other decision on abortion that the Supreme Court is weighing, and involves whether federal regulations supersede local abortion laws in order to provide medical care to patients. How significant do you think is this case?
I think it's incredibly significant. I happened to be in the courtroom during the mifepristone case, and I think we all agreed and heard the deep questioning around standing. And I think in some ways that they unanimously made this decision regarding standing was easy related to mifepristone, because it still allows some of those efforts to flourish. But the real case that we have also been watching intensely has been the EMTALA case, right? This is a case that essentially they are fighting in court to let people die, and they are fighting in a way that literally leaves no room for compassion, no concessions, no compromises, and they will frame it, I suspect, around issues of federalism. But this is really about whether or not people are able to get the life-saving care they need, and I think that is something that we need to pay very close attention to, especially given the devastating impact and abortion bans across this country, Florida being the most recent, right? You know, we're talking about a state that has a volume, 80,000 patients who are now living under a 6-week ban, and the impact of forcing them into pregnancy and then also removing the protections, the federal protections to, allow them to get the care that they may need in the event that something happens during their pregnancy. That, I think, is incredibly alarming, and we should be really looking at the court on this one as well.
Alexis McGill-Johnson, I very much appreciate your perspective. I thank you for being with us this morning. Up next, more reaction to today's decision on the abortion pill. Plus, we've got new reaction from the Biden campaign. We're back in 90 seconds. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC.
The only thing on the road faster than a race car are rising car repair costs. They're up almost 20% in the past year alone. But with Endurance, you'll never pay for covered car repairs again.
Right now, you can get $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits, a $2,000 value free, all backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Call 1-833-879-4515 for a free quote.
Tamara, Izzy, and Emma. They respond to emails with phone calls. And they don't circle back. They're already there. They wear business sneakers and pad their keyboards with something that makes their clickety-clacking clickety-clackier. But no one loves logistics as much as they do. You need Tamara, Izzy, and Emma. They need a retirement plan. Work with Principal so we can help you with a retirement and benefits plan that's right for your team. Let our expertise round out yours.
Your vote will live after you. It will live in the Supreme Court. Your vote will decide what century we live in. Will we live in an age of legal and constitutional enlightenment, or will we live in 1864? Your vote is not just about the next 4 years. Your vote is nothing less than an exercise in incredible intergenerational power that will live long after you.
14 past the hour, breaking news this hour. The Supreme Court says the abortion pill mifepristone can stay on the market, and we are getting new reaction from the Biden campaign. The campaign's senior advisor just released this statement just a short time ago, in part saying, quote, "It would be a devastating mistake for voters or members of the media to take away from today's ruling that medication abortion is now safe from MAGA attacks. If given the chance, Donald Trump will ban medication abortion nationwide. In fact, his allies have a plan to do so using executive actions." I want to bring in NBC News law and politics analyst Dahlia Lithwick, MSNBC legal contributor and host of MSNBC's The Katie Phang Show. Katie Phang, and Dr. Kavita Patel, former White House policy director under President Obama. She is also an MSNBC medical contributor. So, Katie, what's your reaction to this decision today?
Well, thanks, Jose, and I'm honored to be on with Dahlia and Dr. Patel. Look, Jose, what I appreciate about what happened today is the unanimous portion of the decision, which I think is a good sign. But more importantly, there's this thing that we used to do when I was still practicing law, which is you go for the procedure before the substance. And in this instance, if you don't have standing, if you can't even make your way through the courthouse door to be able to have your case heard, then that's okay. Not all plaintiffs have standing. You have to have a personal stake in the dispute. And interestingly, Justice Brett Kavanaugh writes that Justice Scalia once said famously, quote, "Well, what's in it for you?" Meaning, what does this have